Welcome to the series of Blender tutorials. This tutorial is about the Properties window in Blender 2.59. This script has been contributed by Sneha Deorukkar and Bhanu Prakash and edited by Monisha Banerjee. After watching this tutorial, we shall learn what is the Properties window. What is the Material panel in the Properties window? What are the various settings in the Material panel of the Properties window? I assume that you know the basic elements of the Blender interface. If not, then please refer to our earlier tutorial, Basic Description of the Blender Interface. The Properties window is located on the right-hand side of our screen. We have already seen the first panels of the Properties window and their settings in the previous tutorial. Let's see the next panel in the Properties window. First, we must resize our Properties window for better viewing and understanding. Left-click the left edge of the Properties window. Hold and drag to the left. We can see the options in the Properties window more clearly now. To learn how to resize the Blender windows, see our tutorial, How to Change Window Types in Blender. Go to the top row of the Properties window. Left-click the sphere icon at the top row of the Properties window. This is the Material panel. Here, we can add a material to the active object. By default, a standard material is added to the cube. This material is part of the material slot highlighted in blue. Left-click the plus sign at the top right corner of the Material panel to add a new material slot. Left-click New to add a new material. By default, all new materials are added with basic settings. Left-click the minus sign under the plus sign to delete the new material slot. We are back to our original material. Let's rename it to white. Left-click Material in the ID name bar between the material slot box and the preview window. Type white on your keyboard and hit the Enter key. Both the material and material slot names have changed to white. We can also add a new material without adding a new material slot. Left-click the plus sign to the right of the Material ID name bar. A new material is added to the material slot. Rename it to red. You guessed it, we are going to change the color of this material from white to red. But first, let's take a look at the row buttons below the Material ID name bar. Surface renders the material of the active object as its surface. This is the default render material in Blender. Wire renders the material as a wired mesh showing only the edges of the object's polygons. This is a useful tool that saves time on modeling and rendering. We will learn about wired mesh, edges and polygons in detail in more advanced tutorials about modeling in Blender. Volume renders the material as the entire volume of the active object. The material settings are different from those for surface and wire. We will see these settings in detail when we use volume material in later tutorials. Halo renders the material as halo particles around the active object. Again, the material settings have changed. We will see these settings in detail when we use halo material in later tutorials. Notice that none of these options are visible in the 3D view. That is because these can only be viewed in the render display. To learn about render display, see the tutorial Types of Windows, Properties, Part 1. Go back to Surface. we will see the settings for the surface material. Below is the preview window that shows a preview of the rendered material. To the right is a column of buttons for different preview options. Plane, sphere, cube, monkey, hair, and sky. Now, let's change the color of our material from white to red. Go to Diffuse. Left-click the white bar under Diffuse. A color menu appears. We can choose any color we want from this menu. I am choosing red. Left-click and hold the white dot in the center of the color circle. Drag your mouse towards the red zone of the circle. The color of the cube changes from white to red in the 3D view and the preview window in the material panel. Another method is left-click red bar under Diffuse again. Do you see the three bars named R, G and B below the color circle? Left-click R. Type 1 on your keyboard and hit the Enter key. Left-click G. Type 0 on your keyboard and hit the Enter key. Left-click B. Type 0 on your keyboard and hit the Enter key. Now, cube color is a perfect red. Similarly, left-click the white bar under Specular. Select any color in the color menu. I am selecting green. So look, the shine on the cube has changed from white to light green. Now, what if I want to use the white material again? How do I get it back? Go to the Material ID name bar. Here is another sphere icon to the left of the name bar. Left-click the sphere icon. This is the material menu. All materials used in the scene are listed here. Right now, only two materials are displayed here, red and white. Left-click white. Once again, the cube has changed from red to white. Below both Diffuse and Specular are the intensity bars. By default, intensity is 0.8 for Diffuse and 0.5 for Specular. These can be changed as per the type of material finish required. A matte finish means less intensity of both Diffuse and Specular. For example, a natural wood material will have a matte finish. A glossy finish means more intensity of Diffuse and Specular. For example, a car paint material will have a glossy finish. Lambert is the default shader for Diffuse in Blender. Left-click Lambert. This is the Diffuse shader menu. Here we can choose a required shader like Fresnel, Minot, Toon, Oren Nayar, and Lambert. Like intensity, shaders are also different for different types of materials. For example, a glass material will use the Fresnel shader. Similarly, Cooktore is the default shader for Specular in Blender. Left-click Cooktore. This is the Specular shader menu. Blinn and Phong are the most common specular shaders used for 90% of materials. Hardness determines the spread of specularity or shininess of the object. Left-click Hardness 50. Type 100 on your keyboard and hit the Enter key. The specular area is reduced to a small circle on the preview sphere. Again, Left click hardness 100. Type 10 on your keyboard and hit the enter key. Now the specular area becomes larger and spreads over the preview sphere. So these are the basic settings of the material panel. Rest of the settings will be covered in later tutorials. Now you can go ahead and create a new file. Add a new material to the cube and change its color and name to blue. This tutorial is created by Project OSCAR and supported by the National Mission on Education through ICT. More information on the same is available at the following links: oscar.iitb.ac.in and spoken-tutorial.org/nmeict-intro. The Spoken Tutorial project conducts workshops using spoken tutorials, also gives certificates to those who pass an online test. For more details,
please write us to contact@spoken-tutorial.org.
Thanks for joining us. And this is Monisha from IIT Bombay signing off.